Today we're diving into a really fascinating modern paradox, and we're going to do it through the lens of Alan Flusser's menswear classic, Dressing the Man. It's a book that asks this one simple but honestly pretty profound question about the state of men's style right now.
And this is it. This is the big question Flusser kicks things off with. And man, is it a powerful one. We've got more access to clothes than ever. Endless brands, new trends every week, a million options online. And yet, genuine timeless style? It feels like it's never been harder to find. So what happened?
So this brings us to the first big idea from the book, what Flusser calls the modern style paradox. He argues that even with this absolute explosion of choice, we've somehow ended up with less actual style. It's a classic case of more clothes, but way less clarity.
Just think about it for a second. Men's stores, designer labels, they're everywhere. The industry is absolutely booming. But Flusser points out that despite all this cash being thrown around, the number of truly well-dressed men is actually nosedived. It seems like having access to more stuff hasn't actually taught us anything about personal style. We've just become really good consumers of fashion, not creators of our own look. Okay, so to really understand what we've lost, Flusser says we need to take a look back to what he calls a lost golden age. He zeroes in on this one specific period that he thinks was the absolute peak of menswear, a time when having a sense of style seemed almost effortless and, just normal.
We're talking about the 1920s and 30s. According to Flusser, this era cranked out the best-dressed generation of the entire 20th century. And here's the crazy part. It wasn't just movie stars like you see here. The average guy's sense of style was incredibly sophisticated. It was like they were all speaking a shared language of elegance. So the question is, how did they pull that off?
Well, Flusser boils it down to three main things. First, men had legit role models to look up to. Hollywood icons like Cary Grant and Clark Gable, but also big-shot business leaders and socialites who really set the bar high. Second, the ideal was bespoke, custom-made clothes, which meant the clothes were literally made to fit the man, not the other way around. And third, there were these widely accepted standards of what good taste looked like for any given situation. Now, here's what's so fascinating, how this taste spread. It wasn't just random. Flusser explains that new styles had to get the stamp of approval from elite tastemakers before they could gravitate down to the general public. He actually compares it to the French system for certifying wine, the Appellation Contrôlée, which guarantees quality. A new style had to pass this kind of test, proving it was authentic fashion before it ever made it into a store. All right, so if that system worked so well, what on earth broke it? Well, Flusser argues that a whole series of cultural shifts led to what he calls the Great Sartorial Decline, which basically left us in the confused mess we're in today. And you can actually map it out. The 1950s brought on the gray flannel suit era, where conformity was everything and individuality was kind of frowned upon. Then, bam, the 1960s hit with the Peacock Revolution, a full-on rebellion that just blew up tradition. By the 80s, retailers totally gave up on educating their customers. They just started pushing designer logos instead. And that's what's left men today, completely adrift on what Flusser perfectly calls the shifting sands of fashion.
And if you want to pinpoint the moment it all changed, this quote from the legendary designer Yves Saint Laurent pretty much nails it. Down with the Ritz, up with the street. This was it. This was the moment that the old gatekeepers of taste were deliberately overthrown. The shared standards that had guided men for decades were suddenly gone, and just like that, good tastes became anybody's guess.
So, out of all this chaos, all this confusion, Flusser offers up this really powerful and, frankly, elegant solution. It's not about trying to turn back the clock. It's about adopting a smarter mindset that he calls permanent fashion. So, at its very core, permanent fashion has nothing to do with what's in this season. It's a total psychological shift. It's about dressing for yourself. It's a style that answers to your own unique physical makeup, not to the random, fleeting whims of the fashion industry. And here's the logic in its simplest form, right? While trends will come and go every few months, the architecture of your body, your face shape, your shoulder width, that stuff stays pretty constant. And Flusser argues that should be the foundation of your wardrobe. You build your style on the bedrock of yourself, not on shifting sand. I just love this analogy from the book. He says you wouldn't hang priceless art in a house if the walls were about to collapse, right? Well, in the same way, you can't get real style by just throwing trendy designer clothes onto a shaky foundation. You have to build that foundation first. Okay, so how do you actually build that foundation? Well, this is the best part.
Flusser boils it all down to two fundamental pillars of style. If you can master these two things, you've pretty much won half the battle.
And here they are: proportion and color. First up, proportion. That's all about the architecture, how the shapes and lines of your clothes work with the shapes and lines of your body. And second, color. This is all about using the right shades and tones to complement your personal complexion. And, most importantly, draw attention to your face.
Let's make proportion a little more concrete. Should your tie be skinny or wide next season? Flusser would say that's the wrong question entirely. The answer isn't in some fashion magazine, it's in your own personal architecture. See, the width of your tie should be in proportion to your jacket lapels, and the width of those lapels, that should be in proportion to the width of your shoulders. See? It's a harmonious system built around you, and it creates a visual balance that is always in style.
And what about color? Well, its job isn't just to look pretty. Flusser argues its most critical function is to act like a frame, directing everyone's attention right where it should be, to your face, the center of all expression and communication. The clothes shouldn't be the star of the show. They're there to present you.
Now, what's so wild about this is that none of this is new knowledge. It's just been forgotten. Back in that golden age of the 30s, magazines like Apparel Arts would actually publish these super detailed guides, literally teaching men how to coordinate colors with their specific hair and skin tone. It was basically a science, and Flusser's work is all about helping us rediscover it.
So, we'll leave you with a question to take with you. As you look at your own closet, ask yourself, what is it built on? Is it just a collection of random, disconnected trends, those shifting sands of fashion designed to impress other people? Or is it built on a solid foundation, the timeless principles of proportion and color that are totally unique to you? The answer, according to Flusser, is the difference between being a victim of fashion and being a truly well-dressed man.